Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Noel Lita, one of the co-founding members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here today with three of my co-hosts. First of all, Julian Harper, the legal bookworm.
Welcome, welcome.
Second of all, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And of course, the great Father Lucas is here with us.
Hotep.
And we'd like to welcome you once again, our viewing audience, and remind you to tell a foe, tell a friend that we're on every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Those who don't have access to cable can punch it up on the internet via ManhattanNeighborhoodNetwork.com. Right?
No,
and they can watch
.org.
it. .org?
.org.
I always get that wrong. That's why I need Julian. I always look at Julian. I always get it wrong. But serious business, you can tell anyone that you want to share the program with that they can catch it over the internet. They can see it over their iPad, over their computers, and they can join in and be a part of the program because there's very few programs where they speak truth and real talk like we do. Right off the bat, as is customary, we have so much to talk about. We weren't here last week, but in 1827 was the first black-owned, black editorialized newspaper right here in the city of New York City called the Freedom Journal. And in a day and time where we have a lack of really good black newspapers, we want to commemorate the individuals who created that. Michael, why don't you tell our audience about this particular journal and the significance and the role that it played in our community in 1827?
We should always remember Freedom's Journal. Certainly that's an earmark that stands out in our history. When we think of John Washworm and Samuel Cornish, and by the way, there's a school named after them in Harlem, over there on 135th Street. We should always remember that that's the very same year that New York State abolished slavery. And so we should be mindful that our brothers and sisters were able to put together a communications network that traveled all along the Atlantic coast and even went into the South. And that type of communication, we don't even have that on unfiltered type of newspaper now where the truth is told and the treatment that was going on in obviously in the southern part of North America was critical, and it was just remarkable to have them just put together this type of newspaper because no one can tell our story better than us. And that was actually the editorial of the first newspaper when they said, "Too long have others spoken for us, and we need to speak for ourselves." So that still rings true today, that we need to speak and tell our unvarnished truth.
And I think it's so important that at this time and always that we have an opportunity and ensure that we get to tell our own story and tell our own truth. I think it's unfortunate that the way the media is set up and designed now, that there are so many perspectives that are ours that are being either displayed via print or through television media. And I think it's really time that we start producing great journalists in our community and allow our story to be told by our own people and by our children.
All right, that's the Freedom Journal. And as Julian stated, we live in a day at a time. It is very difficult for me to even watch the newspaper. The countless lies and misinformation and half-truths that is reported over the airways is unbelievable sometimes. So we definitely need the opportunity to tell our version of the truth, or our perspective on a whole lot of world events, local, national, and international. So we commemorate our brothers who took the feat in creating this communication called the Freedom Journal. Topic number one, we're going to go international first. In the state of Israel, Netanyahu, the white supremacist, is running for the top seat in the nation of Israel. That's the reason why I said he's a white supremacist. I think it's clear. You know, one of his pronouncements the other day was that there will be no two states, no Palestinian state, which every nation, most every nation on the planet agrees that the Palestinians deserve their own state. Since the nation of Israel basically forced them off of their territory and took over the territory, was little left, they should at least have the right to develop their own state where they can rule over themselves and create their own laws, their own institutions. But Netanyahu said there will be no two states, meaning that he wants the European Jews in Israel to control the whole land. Father, we'll start with you. not only did he disrespect Barack Obama a couple of weeks ago by making the presentation to both houses, which was unprecedented, the manner by which he did it, avoiding communications with the White House. What is your feelings about the elections, ramifications? Who do you think will win? Should he win?
But let's just see him hang. Not only he said there's never going to be, as long as he's in charge, a Palestinian state, but another slap at Obama. He is going to continue building these colonies, which they euphemistically call settlements. And it's the 2 weeks ago at the Congress was not, he's been insulting Obama from the get-go. And that's what makes Obama look like such a punk, that he's been taking it all along. But this is not the first insult. I mean, jeez.
You know, and it's unfortunate, and I concur with Noel, and I think that the Palestinians do deserve their own state, which, as he stated, they were basically moved out of their own land or pushed further back from their land. You know, Netanyahu is attempting to say that if the Palestinians obtain their own state and their own independence, that that's going to add fuel for the Islamic extremists. He's been pushing this, and it's unfortunate that our elected officials aren't standing in solidarity with looking for the Palestinians to have their own state. But what I do like is that there's a large portion of people in Israel who are standing against Netanyahu, and I'm hoping that the election goes in a direction where the Palestinians do have an opportunity to have their own state, which I think every nation does deserve that right.
Well, certainly from the outset, the state of Israel as currently constructed does not have a right to any buildings, not one rock, not one blade of grass. This was stolen from the Palestinians. I won't get into a long dissertation relative to who the lands belong to, because you can look no further than us. The lands belong to us. But the Arabs were there before these transplanted Europeans got there. At least the Arabs have more claim to the land than they do. Now, actually, it's a black land where black people were there first. But I would say that these transplanted Europeans that came here in this present generation, you know, when they look at their grandparents, their great-grandparents, they don't look towards Palestine. They got to go to Eastern Europe, where they all came from. They all came as a result, for the most part, the so-called European Holocaust. I won't say the Holocaust, because they don't even know what the Holocaust is, because that happened with either our people, the African transatlantic slave trade, or you could say that the Native American, that was a Holocaust. Not to compare, but that's the least of Holocaust if you want to look at Holocaust experiences. But they use that as a justification to take this land from Palestinians, and then they use the biblical text and called it the state of Israel to hide their dastardly deeds. So, and this has nothing to do with being anti-Jewish. I'm just anti-imperialism, and this is an imperialist nation that from Europe that took over the land from the Arabs who were disorganized. They exploited that disorganization and took it from them. And among them rose one who hates anything that's not Jewish, and that's Prime Minister Netanyahu. I experienced him firsthand at the House of the Lord Church years ago under the Black United Front, where he came there. Was supposed to be a debate with him and Dr. Taherzi. But he came there anyway, and he let everybody know he has no respect for Arabs, and he was an ambassador at that time. It was just unfiltered talk, and he let everybody know that if you're not Jewish, he could care less about you. He hated anything that wasn't Jewish, and certainly in this particular situation, he disrespects the president, because the president is of African American descent, certainly. So he has no respect for him, and he can't hide it, because that's who he is. And the bad part about it is that the president has not shown that what it takes to fight and at least stand up and to maintain your own integrity. They've had a few clashes in the past, and as Father Lucas pointed out, he continues to bulldoze and resettle build more so-called settlements and bulldoze in Arab lands, and sometimes he takes away their water rights. He's just a despicable human being. If you want to consider him a human being, he's among the most despicable on the planet, and yet he's running for office, and he has the nerve to come here uninvited by the president, which violates, all sorts of diplomacy in this given situation.
Several things come to mind. The whole area is occupied. It's an occupation.
Right.
It has nothing to do with their right. Talking about that if a Palestinian state is created, they will hook up with the ISIS, and that's absolute nonsense. You could say, well, if the Jewish state is, they're going to hook up with whom? And then as far as the so-called justification, it wasn't the Arabs or the Palestinians that created and gained from the European, you're right, Holocaust. So if you were really using that as an excuse, then you should be over there in Germany, occupying in Germany. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is a farce. Now, our elected officials, of course, the large percentage of them, are going to go along with that program, not so much that they give a damn about Netanyahu or Israel, but since everything is for sale in this country, they're interested in Jewish money back here, helping in their campaign. And that's what that's all about, monies from the Jewish aid packs and the rest of them.
And for anyone who wants to know about the settlements or the occupied lands, it's against international law to occupy territories that was gained as a result of a war or armed skirmish. And that's what the nation of Israel has done for generations, of occupied land that they don't own, that has been stolen, and there's not been enough pressure to force them to return that land back to its owners from some of the
Mind you, the United States is an occupied land right now.
Right, okay. Issue number 2, 47 U.S. senators, Republican senators, wrote a letter to, of all individuals, Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, warning him against trusting President Barack Obama's who has sent the team, along with other major nations, to negotiate the dismantling of Iranian's nuclear program. It's a very unprecedented activity for senators to undermine a sitting president, who's in negotiations with another foreign leader, telling that foreign leader not to trust their own president of the United States. And this is just another example, as we show every week, of white supremacy, their total disregard for the President of the United States, primarily, I believe, because he's African American. These kind of activities, there's always been debates, there's always been criticisms, but these kind of unprecedented steps that have been taken by Republicans and not sufficiently refuted by even white Democrats is preposterous. Julian, what is your position on what these 47 senators have done?
Well, I mean, I have to concur with you. I believe that this is not really just a slap in the face of the seat of the president, but I think of the president himself, President Barack Obama. Because there's been disagreements between Congress and the president in the past, but it's never been handled in this manner. And I think that we really have to look at this as a slap in the face to President Barack Obama, and I concur with you, Noel. I think it's because he's a African American president. I don't think this would have happened under the Bush administration or any other administration. But when we start talking about negotiation between, or negotiations or disagreements between the president or the House or the Senate or Congress, I think that has to be handled in-house. For them to take this outside of the area of the United States and write a letter and showing so much disrespect for the President of the United States, I think that is very problematic, and I concur. It sets a very bad precedent. But I think that we have to hold our elected officials accountable, how they disrespect that seat and how it's going to affect our country long term.
Well, certainly, I think that what they have done, it borders on maybe not treason. That's too strong a term, but certainly it's in the area of sedition.
Right.
Now, I would say that it's the easy part is they violated a couple of centuries of protocol. it is well known and understood in all political and non-political circles that the president is in control of foreign policy. Now, certainly, Congress has the right relative to voting on war, but when it comes to foreign policy as such, especially between heads of state and the like, that executive privileges abides alone with the current president. And for him to allow this and to just say that they're aligning themselves with Iran's hardliners, that's not a strong enough statement of condemnation. Now, he is the titular head of the Democratic Party, and when you've had 47 Republicans do something like this, U.S. senators, where is the response from the Democratic Party? Where's Nancy Pelosi? Where's the minority leader, the Senate minority leader, McConnell? I mean, you just look at these things. Where's the whip and everybody? Why aren't they saying anything? This just shows you that he is not the titular head, the true head of the Democratic Party, and that there are Democrats that do not respect him, and that certainly, whether it's Perry and other governors, former governors and present governors, they have never looked at President Barack Hussein Obama as their president. They will say the president, but they'll never use the term our president because they fully understand that there's no way in the world that they're going to ever look at him as their leader.
And Father, before you answer, don't lose your thought, but even the white media, I mean, there is no sufficient criticism of what these state senators are doing in terms of undermining the foreign policy position of a sitting president of the United States. What they're doing is so disrespectful. They acting like he doesn't exist. To reach out to a foreign head of state while your president is in negotiations with that foreign head of state, and they're telling him, don't trust my president, I think that's preposterous. This is only a manifestation of the prevalence of white supremacy to the highest. Because if they want to disrespect an African-American president of the United States of America, what are they going to do to the rest of the society?
Exactly. I just want to piggyback on something that Mike said in regard to, I would have expected that the president would have directed Eric Holder, who's still the Attorney General and head of the Injustice Department, to look into the possibility of this being really treason. Because here you have 47 senators who writes to the head of a state of which the United States is in conflict. And if that doesn't signify a treasonable, I don't know what will.
Well, I think that if we really look at this from a, just stepping back and taking a real clear view of this, this shouldn't be surprising to us. I think that throughout his entire presidency, there has been a blatant disrespect for him while he sat in that seat. When we talk about white supremacy, they don't see that seat as being theirs, where they're still controlling what's coming from the president, that they are in agreement with the president. I think that the total lack of respect for President Barack Obama allows them or gives them the energy or the brio to do the things that they do. But I think that it's really important that we collectively as a nation support the president, even if we disagree with the positions that he takes. That seat is still that seat, and it represents the entire country, so we have to ensure that that seat is respected and not disrespected by these elected officials that are in Congress. So I think we have to pay attention to that as well.
I imagine.
No, go ahead. No.
So many people have occupied that seat, however, that themselves have had no respect for that seat. And I'm talking about, going back from Ronald Reagan all the way down. So it's rather difficult to say respect the seat. I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree with you, but it's still rather when you had folks in that seat who had no respect for it.
But it's our responsibility to demand that because it affects us collectively as a nation.
But I want to distinguish then the seat from the sitter.
Okay.
Right.
Well, but I think that overall we have never seen blatant disrespect for the office. We've never seen that. We might have seen questions raised about the individual in the office, but not the office itself. To write that letter is a violation against the office, and I concur that there should be an investigation. Now, President Clinton, right away, their taxes, right away, their business practices that so many of them are involved in, it would all come out in the newspaper. It would be no breadcrumbs that lead back to the president, but some of their practices would be exposed. Some of their extramarital affairs would be exposed. The dirty, dastardly deeds that they do every day in that U.S. Senate, it would start being exposed. LBJ would not have allowed this. He would go after them like it was no tomorrow to unseat them as soon as possible. Ronald Reagan would go after them, and we know what Nixon would do. So we have clear examples. There are clear examples. Even the Bush family would not allow that type of disrespect. They would go after you like it was no tomorrow. For this president just to lay back and to have his so-called friend, the U.S. Attorney General, and not call him and at least look into sedition charges. I'm not going to say treason, but at least sedition. At least put them on notice that they are not allowed to write letters directly to appeal to a country that right now U.S. is at variance with. So certainly something should be done in that regard.
Of course, and internationally, it makes the president look weak to have members of the Senate to deal with him in such a disrespectful manner. 2 times within a month. First, the invitation of Netanyahu, and now this letter to Khomeini. And as I stated, the white media, should be just as outraged, because as Julian said, it's a total disrespect of the office of the presidency who represents the United States. But talking about the Department of Justice, last week the DOJ came out with a stinging report against the criminal justice system in Ferguson, Missouri, indicting not only police officers, but district attorneys and judges who claim that they're all in cahoots to oppress, disenfranchise, to exploit the African-American community in Ferguson, Missouri. For example, the city of 21,000 predominantly African Americans, over 16,000 individuals had warrants for their arrest. 21,000 total population, 16,000 warrants. Now, these aren't 16,000 according to the DOJ report, where some has 10 or 15. These are 16,000 individual people with warrants for their arrest. And what they discovered is that the district attorney's office, the police department, the judges, and the city were utilizing their authority, were abusing their authority to raise revenue from the black community in Ferguson, Missouri, by handing out some of the most trivial summonses for some of the most trivial violations on the record books. A couple of individuals have stepped down, but our position has been that, fine, the DOJ head have discovered what was going on, but there should be an investigation for prosecution. These individuals should not be allowed simply to resign with pensions from their office. They committed criminal activity, at least official misconduct, and I'm outraged that no one's talking about prosecuting these individuals who have engaged in this practice. Father, we'll start with you. Scathing report on the criminal justice system, from judges to police, run amok.
The report I read, and it's, as you said, it's a scathing report. My question is, if you know this, why don't you do something about it? In the first place, as you mentioned, they should be charged. It was a deliberate attempt to raise money for the municipality on the backs of black folks. And he also indicated that Ferguson wasn't the worst offender, but other municipalities around Ferguson were doing exactly the same thing. Now, as you said, if all that's going to happen is you report, I resign, but I like my pension, and I resign, and that's now, unless they're held accountable and made to pay for what they did, then the report is fundamentally useless.
Well, I concur so much with what you said, Father Lucas. I dare say that this falls under the RICO statute. Just to, on paper, indict them, so to speak, not a legal indictment, but just to indict them by pointing out. Now, I went through it, and thank you, our Field Marshal Extraordinaire, Eric Josie, for sending me the entire report. I was able to read it. you don't see a lot of names there. And I think that was intentionally done. It's a 2-year, it goes back 2 years from 012 through 014. So it's a 2-year report. I think the further you go back, the worse it's going to be. Now, when Noel talked about 16,000 warrants, what he's talking about, these are not 16,000 criminals of sorts. These were summonses that was converted into warrants. Mind you, again, summonses converted into warrants.
Correct.
So we're talking about situations where a black man was just playing basketball. After the game, walked over and sat in his car. A police officer came up to him and started asking him a couple of questions. Before you know it, he had 10 or 11 summons, and then he locked him up. Just that simple. He started asking him questions, claimed later that he was asking him about something that had to do with a rape, old rape charge, a rape victim or something like that. And he ended up giving him 11 summons. And he went back to the precinct, and one of his co-workers the next day said he can go up further, and gave somebody 12 summons for nothing, sitting in the car. And then, believe it or not, someone came back after that, another police officer, and gave somebody 14 summons, all from one stopping at a green light, at a red light, approached the car, 14 summons. This is racketeering. This is not only the police officers, this involves clerks, this involves judges, this involves the city manager, this involves the mayor, it involves the whole city. Matter of fact, the city manager even said to the mayor 2 years ago, can you go up 10%? And he said, yeah. And then a year later, he said, can you go up another 10% and bring in even more money? So millions are being brought in. And lastly, one sister in particular who had a $100 ticket for a traffic infraction, she could not pay the ticket on the spot because they have a unique law there where you have to pay it all in one shot. She could not pay it. She has, in the last couple of years, paid in excess of $500 and still owes $500, and also spent 6 days in jail because for her not being able to pay it all at one time, they put her in jail for 6 days. That only shows you this is racketeering at its finest. This is worse than slavery, and this is what they're going through. And as Father Lucas pointed out, there are at least 6 immediate surrounding areas that are all doing the same thing that the DOJ would not even investigate.
You know, I'm really not surprised. I mean, I am appalled, but I'm not surprised. I think this happens across the country, maybe on different scales, on different levels, but it happens right here in New York. The same thing. Summons is being issued to kids for riding their bicycles on the sidewalks, for being in the park after dark, for things that are very simple, that if it is a problem, when an officer can easily walk up to someone and say, listen, we don't want anyone in the park after dusk, please leave the park. And it's very simple to correct. But it's unfortunate that, like I said, municipalities have been using this as a way of obtaining revenue. But there has to be something done about it. Until, you know, the DOJ or someone that's in position of power to address these issues, because it's happening to the black community, it's not that egregious where they're going to have to do so, or they believe that they need to do something about it immediately. But I think that we have to demand, again, back to these people that we're putting in office, they're paying a lot of money, they're living very comfortably in their lives. We have to hold them accountable and make sure that they address these issues.
You know, the story about the basketball player, he was sitting in his car with his basketball shorts on. He had just finished playing the game. And the officer came up and accused him of sodomy. You know, absolutely ridiculous. But looking at the whole thing, the report practically said this was criminal.
Right.
If it were, then I don't know why you don't look into it under, as you hinted, the RICO statute.
And
It's a criminal enterprise.
Well, that's the thing about, I remember, Noel, you said it months ago when Darren Wilson stepped down. I remember distinctly on this show you said that does not mean that he can't be investigated because he resigned. And if you say that then, I'm saying this now, that all of these people, even though all these resignations are coming in, that does not mean that there shouldn't be an investigation. They should be charged from the police commissioner on down, from the mayor on down. And the mayor, by the way, is refusing to step down. The mayor has said this had nothing to do with race, and the DOJ report shows that it's all race. They said everyone that was bitten by a police dog was black.
Right.
They ain't sending one police dog on a white person in Ferguson. They got thousands of white people that live there. None of them got bit by a police dog. So if you go back more than those 2 years, you'll see that everybody that's been bitten by a police dog, while these police officers laughing, have been black.
And also the reports revealed that when they stopped white people, there was a higher percentage of them being found with
Contraband.
contraband
Right.
than it was the African Americans.
Yeah.
So criminality
Right.
has nothing to do with it. This is purely race. And I'm tired of people saying that it's just a few bad apples. We're talking about institutional white supremacy throughout the criminal justice system, throughout this entire country. And if African Americans do not raise their voice in anger against this criminal justice, this is a war on African people. It's not a war on crime. And you know, I understand there's a dichotomy here. Criminal justice system does fight crime, but they also fight against African Americans just because we're African Americans. To have a city of 20 with a population of 21,000 people and have 16,000 people having warrants for their arrest, this is back to the after Reconstruction,
Right.
when they made it illegal
Right.
just to be unemployed.
Right.
You know, the same thing. America has not
Black
changed,
codes.
brothers and sisters, as Julian stated. This is happening to certain levels in each state and each city in this country. The criminal justice system is a war against African American people. Yes, they do fight crime. They do excellent jobs, but there is an underlying tone of racism, and we're not talking about some invisible spiritual entity. We're talking about individuals. There are judges. There are police officers. There are district attorneys who, if you evaluate their behavioral patterns, can be shown to be racist, and they should be prosecuted, uprooted from the system, and we should make that a mandate.
And one of the things that we have to remember, and I always say this, and I'm glad that you said it just now, Noel, people have a tendency to attach it to a system.
Right.
And it is part of the system.
Right.
But within that system, there are individuals
Right.
that are conducting and and allowing this stuff to manifest. They have to be held accountable. Until these individuals are arrested, investigated, and prosecuted, and not in that order, this problem is going to continue. If they take out one guy and allow him to resign and retire, and they put someone with the same mentality that's operating from the same position and is doing the same thing, the same problems are going to exist.
You know, the point that you made about there were more whites likely to have contraband in Ferguson, that's true right here in New York City. And, you know, even the folks who, if they're not doing it directly, you know, I have to blame the whole system and the whole department because their confreres know what they're doing. And they're not doing anything to say anything or doing anything to stop it. So I can't go along with they're doing an excellent job. They're doing an excellent job for white supremacy, but not for you and me.
Right.
Well, you know, I remember Father Lucas so many times on this show relative to President Obama saying talk is cheap, but where's the action? And on this particular case, I'm weighing in with Father Lucas. The president has verbalized things. Eric Holder has verbalized things. The president has said in his task force that they want the numbers from all the major police departments relative to how many people have been killed by police officers and breakdown of race. Want to know what's the composition racially of every major police force, all of the numbers relative to summons and things like that. Want that sort of breakdown, similar to the breakdown they did in Ferguson. He want those numbers on his desk. He did not have any threats and or else any attachments to that request by the task force to go get that. The police department knows full well, NYPD knows how many people have been killed that are unarmed. I dare say the NYPD knows how many black cops have been killed by white cops, and they keep those things secret. So this would be interesting in the days ahead to see if Obama forces that thing relative to getting that type of information.
Well, okay, we're at the portion where we have to open up our phone calls. We have one more issue we definitely want to touch on, Father. We would definitely want to talk about what's happening in the Department of Corrections. But first caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from the Rockaways.
Hotep, quick question or comment, brother.
Okay, yeah, this is Uncle Keisha's uncle.
Yes, sir.
Brother Automatic said on this show, he said that when he was going through law school, he realized there was nothing on it for us, for our protection against them. And this is well as their constitution. That's the reason why, we can't get no justice, but we can sue them because they print the money. They don't mind a lawsuit. And, of the words of Harriet Tubman, she said she could have freed more slaves if only we had known we were slaves. Well, we are highly smart people, but I think we're sickly smart, too. Because, I'm looking at Eric Holder. He called the gentleman that was shooting at the cops punk. But the affliction of hell that we catching from white people, especially Trayvon Martin, where Trayvon Martin called the police station. They told him not to follow Trayvon Martin, but yet he followed them, and under Eric Holder's authority, they vindicated the killer. You know what I'm saying?
Zimmerman.
It's sad that we get more angry when we try to defend ourselves or fix something on them, but when they kill us unarmed, we get more angry than we do when they kill us.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your call and your points. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep, brother. It's Kareem from home.
Hotep, brother.
Hotep.
Yes, sir. Let's paint this picture properly now. First of all, when people do something to the United States, they don't say, we shall overcome this turn the cheek. They go out and murder them, like Obama and everybody else that they did. We got to understand that if we're not ready to give up our life, eye for an eye, they're going to keep doing the same thing. They hate us when they say we want our country back. Obama and Holder's not going to do anything because they are beholden to the master. So what we got to do is go back to the master plan. We have the blueprint. Dr. King, Malcolm, Marcus Garvey, they laid out the blueprint. We got to come together and put aside our egos and come together as one people, realize we have one enemy, and move forward on that one enemy.
Okay.
Y'all brothers be blessed and keep doing a great job.
Okay. Thank you for your call, brother. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? You're an air caller. Where you calling from? Hello, caller. Okay. Next caller. Where you calling from, brother?
Harlem.
Hotep, quick question, comment.
Hotep. Listen, I just wanted to make a comment about the thing where you guys were talking about how they turned the structure into summonses and things of that nature. I don't know if you guys were aware, down in Florida and Georgia, if you was pulled over by police, they had a way of writing something on the back of your ticket. When it came to black people, they was writing frowny faces. So this way, when you went before the judge knew what type of attitude you displayed towards the officer and was able to determine what type of penalties or surcharges they were going to add to you. The white people was getting the happy faces, no matter what questions was asked. If you just ask them, what am I being pulled over for, that's resistance in their mind. So they would ticket you. Now, I want to touch on something real fast. You guys have a connection with City Hall, hopefully. Why is it that the switch from Omar Edwards being shot down like a damn dog in Harlem by a white officer who was later promoted to sergeant, who is now up for lieutenant? Why haven't they released the video footage if they're so about transparency in this administration?
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. And we don't, for disclosure purposes, we have no relationship with City Hall. I don't think City Hall has any relationship with any African American organization. But about the video, real quickly,
they took all the video. We could point out 5 or 6 locations where there were videos. They confiscated all of them in one fell swoop and went on TV the next day and lied and said that he was shot in the chest and he was shot in the back. And by they, I mean the mayor at that time, Mayor Bloomberg, and the police commissioner, who was Ray Kelly.
All right, next caller. Let me tell you about these videos. When they don't like what's on the video disappears. So we're all for videos, but we understand, how they're going to respond. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Brooklyn. This is Brother Bruce.
Hotep, Bruce.
Hey, I just want to know, as we the people, like the Constitution states, we the people have to make the ask or enforcement here. We have to get enforcement to follow the Constitution, letter of the law, and act upon these things that are not happening correctly. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's appropriate. We have to make them, but this system is just replete in white supremacy. you know, the entities involved, the elected officials, so-called leaders. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. As Julian always said, the people have to rise up and force them to do what we elect them to do. The power's going to be in the people, man. The power has to be in the people. Like the Black Panthers used to say, power to the people. The people have to organize themselves and get tired of being sick and tired. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Ray, can you hear me? Community
Yes,
Cop?
sir. Hotel. Where you calling from, Ray Ray?
Hey, Brooklyn, how y'all doing, man? Good
Okay.
to hear from you. Let me can you answer this question? The Jews are pushing the Palestinians out of that land in Israel. They're doing the same thing to us here. They're pushing us out of our communities. They're taking our property. Now, with this state-sponsored terrorism that's happening to us, everybody else that's coming to the Terror Dome are praising America, and they are standing up and protecting it with their life. And number three, you Puerto Rican in the Spanish channel talk about Obama's wife, Michelle. And that was total disrespect, and everybody's just coming down on us. It's really getting disgusting. And I was listening to Latrice, and what happened to that gentleman's son, I was real mad.
Same cue, yeah.
Real mad today listening to the program.
All right. All right. Thank you for your phone call, brother.
Well, I would just say that quickly what Ray Ray was talking about, that was Tennessee, but in any event, what we have to do is we have to start really coming at some of these gatekeepers that are just misdirecting our people. Our people are poorly organized at this time, and we don't really know who the enemy is. And unfortunately, we're waiting for signals from very popularized people who've been put in power by our enemies, and that's unfortunate because that's all part of counterintelligence, and that's what they're doing now. That's why we don't know who the enemy is, how to organize, when to strike, and we wait for the leaders that black leaders that they put in place to misdirect us, and that's why whether it was Zimmerman, that's why whether it was Ferguson and all these other places, we have these national leaders that are misdirecting us.
Right. All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
It's me.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Where you calling from, brother?
Calling from Harlem.
Okay, quick question or comment.
But that what brother what Gray was just saying just now, is that litany about Netanyahu, right? Let me tell y'all, brother, something. I agree with Netanyahu. I don't say I agree. I respect that. I respect any leader that defends and stands up for their people. I don't respect nobody lynching my people, and I don't respect nobody burning no cross on my people's lawn. But I'm going to tell you one damn thing. I respect the Klan for wanting to be white. Oh, yes, the hell I do. I respect that. I respect those white kids that was on that bus talking about we don't want no niggers in their school. I respect that, too. I just wish that Negroes would get on the bus and say we don't want no crackers and Spelman.
Right.
That's what I wish what the hell happened.
All right.
When is Negroes going to stop kissing their kidnappers' asses? When?
Okay, brother. I feel you.
Turn around and niggas, all they want to kiss their kidnappers' asses.
Right. Okay, brother. I got it, brother. I got it. I don't respect the devil.
Yeah.
Okay, you're entitled to respect him if you want. I have no love or no respect for no devil.
If that's who you respect, I hope you don't respect me.
Right. Okay. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. But I understand your line of thinking, and I'm hoping you being loose with your word respect. But I don't respect anybody who oppresses African people. Not one of them. They devils. They dogs. And I have no respect for them.
How are you?
Hotel. Where you calling from, brother?
Harlem.
Quick question or comment?
Big ups to the four powerful chakras. Leader Michael Graves, Father Lucas, Julian. I'll be real quick. My question is real quick. I want to say, do you think that dirtbag Netanyahu will he be reelected, and will there be a backlash? And also, do you think that the disrespect that Obama is getting is because he was a lackey at the first State of the Union when Joe Wilson called him a liar? He should have shut Joe Wilson down. That's probably why they disrespect him. One more question, and I'll be done. Reinstate automatic, you got it. You brought it well. Thank you very much, Hotel.
Okay, Hotel, brother. Thank you.
Brother.
Anybody want to answer that?
Joe Wilson from South Carolina, the moment he said that, The next day, he had over $200,000 in his re-election campaign that he received online. So obviously there were some whites in the Confederacy that respected Joe Wilson, calling the president a liar, you know, in front of the joint session of Congress, and they paid for his re-election campaign. So the president did nothing, and he only apologized to Rob Emanuel, who was his chief of staff at the time. He never directly apologized to the president, and that's why Frederick Douglass said it best: the slave that's beat most easy is beat most often.
Whether Netanyahu's going to be reelected, I'm not sure, but what I do think is that anything that they can do to ensure that he's reelected, be above or below board, will be done.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Out of the Bronx.
Okay, Boogie Down Bronx.
Yeah, I just want to say that. Well, I want to ask you brothers a question about getting your record expunged. You know, because a lot of times when they send people up on the false charges or whatever, and they get off, you know how they say, oh, this person had a rap sheet, but it's not really applicable. So tell people how to do that. And also for the young brothers and sisters, the new movement is when you're getting off a bus or train and you have your unlimited, you're getting off, swipe on. And that'll keep them from those penny ante charges to stop them from getting crossed up. Thank you. I'll listen.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Just tell them to call us.
Yeah, call our hotline number. I'm not certain if New York City even has an expungement law. I know for a few years ago we were fighting so that they could get an expungement law. A lot of other states do have it, but we went to Washington, D.C. A few years ago, compelled some congressional people for New York City to have an expungement law because for a period of time it didn't exist. But all you have to do is go to court if it does exist and apply that your record is expunged. That's if, you know, in a situation where the police officer may have arrested you, brought you to the precinct, printed you, took your picture, and then the DA might have refused to prosecute you, but they still have your prints and your record, and you want everything erased out of NYPD records. In New York City, for a long period of time, they weren't doing that. I'm not certain if they do it now, but you have to appeal in court to have that expunged if that's what you want. But Father, you had an incident, some information about investigation, a scandal, wide-reaching scandal that's going on in the Department of Corrections.
Oh. Well, the name is public, so I could say a former correction officer named Gary Hayward. He's writing a book right now, by the way, a long expose in the Daily News a couple days ago. This man said he made a fortune bringing in even guns, drugs, cigarettes, and all kind of contraband for the inmates. And to put salt in the wound, that he had a prostitution ring made up of female correction officers who engaged not only the inmates, but who were engaging to higher-ups in the department. So when you get that kind of thing, now I don't know if this guy is crazy and exaggerating, but if you come out and say that, and you're writing a book detailing the things that you claim you have done while you were there. I know he was let go from the correction department, and now I'm told that he has I'm not sure what that job is. They haven't told me yet, but I'll try to find out. He has another city job.
Well, this is just, you know, Julian, like when we talk about from Ferguson to New York, throughout the country, the criminal justice system in this country, like I said, the dichotomy is it does some good, but it does a lot of bad, you know, as well. We pay them to do good, so they don't get no kudos. You know, police officers, correction officers, judges, and district attorneys, when they do their job, all right, you want to give them kudos for doing a good job, but that's what they get paid for. That's what they get a pension for. The reason why we focus a lot of our attention on the misactions of these institutions, because that's not what they're there for. That's not their job. That's not what they get paid for. That's not why they get the power of the state to abuse authority. And we see too much abuse, especially of the African American community, from these entities. And what is our community to do? I mean, politicians ain't going to do nothing. They're comfortable. They don't want to step up to the plate against these prosecutors, against this district attorney, pro-prosecution apparatus. What are we to do as a community if we can't even have trust in the criminal, in the police departments, and the district attorneys, and the judges? What are we to do as a people?
You know, people always talk about revolutions, and I think that people aren't really familiar or really understand the broad definition of revolting. You know, we have to revolt against these elected officials. You know, we have to have them removed from their position. We have to revolt against a corrupt police department. Now, we want police in our community when the police are doing the right thing. We don't have a problem with that. You know, we respect our police officers to do the right thing. We want them. We commend them for doing what they're supposed to do. But like Noel said, that's their integrity is part of your job. Doing what's right is part of your job. But if we do not punish, hold accountable the elected officials, the judges, the police, and anybody that's in a position of authority, if we don't hold them accountable when they violate those positions, when they bring corruption and lack of integrity into those positions, we don't hold them accountable, then they're going to continue to do those things. They don't belong in those positions. They're not worthy of those positions. And if we don't make sure that the people that we elect do the job that they need to do to be the police of the police, then we're going to continue to get the results that we're getting.
Just want to say for the record that caller who called in inquiring about Omar Edwards, the jury's still not out on that case. Just remember that was a murder case and that it can always come back. We know full well that the mayor and police commissioner covered it up, but they didn't do the shooting. Officer Dutton, who's now a sergeant, and as you said, looking at becoming a lieutenant, he did it. He's still not safe, and 100 blacks and law enforcement who care, we have not forgotten that case, and we know the mother haven't forgotten that case. So it's still not all settled because of murder case. The time does not run out on that.
Okay, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Harlem.
Okay, quick question or comment.
Okay, I got 3 points I want to make. I'm going to try to make it really brief. I mean, you're still on time. In terms of just the whole the Harlem takeover by Europeans, a lot of what we did right, I'll have to make a negative point to make a positive point in terms of some of the things that went down in the 80s in terms of, you know, whether it's being entrepreneurs, but in a negative sense. You know, that needs to be rebirthed, but in terms of legal businesses, in order to reclaim our community. And part of what we did back in those days is like when you wasn't from a particular neighborhood, you couldn't go into that neighborhood and make any money. But nowadays, people have abandoned that philosophy because we have Arabs, Jews, and everybody coming in on 125th Street, opening up new businesses, and everybody's celebrating these little businesses that don't do anything for the neighborhood but rape us on a daily basis of all our finances. And people are rejoicing for these new businesses, which I think is ridiculous. So we just band together in terms of boycotting them on a consistent level, not because somebody got shot or beat up, you know, just band together to just make a commitment to not give these people any of our dollars unnecessarily. You know, they'd have to leave. And those businesses would now at some point be available for instance for black entrepreneurs to go in and with new ventures that actually benefit the neighborhood. You know, and my thing is like I was having a conversation with somebody. I said it seems that when a black man has a message that affects his community and his people, he's shut down. They shut him down in a heartbeat.
Right.
So my thing is, I'm wondering why there's so many churches. No disrespect to anybody's religion, but there's so many churches around here, and nobody's being harassed in these churches. So I think at some point the message in the churches should reflect the conditions of the communities, because there's so many churches in Harlem. If everybody got on a certain page and put that message out, then people could collectively wake up simultaneously to make a difference.
Well, okay, brother. All right, we wind it down. You made some very excellent points. You know, everybody believes in economic boycott, but except for our community. You know, Elton John recently called for a boycott against Gabbano and whatever the other cat's name is, because he made what Elton John feel is some anti-gay comments, and you know, people are jumping out of woodworks to support his economic call for economic boycotts against that company. If there's a store in the black community, they can't make no money unless we support it. We can close anybody down who we want to, and you know. So, brother, you stated you can start it off. You can organize that. Pick one store, especially those who don't hire anybody in our community, don't give any money back, and then ask brothers and sisters not to support them. You know, we have the power. We just, as Michael said earlier, just like the organization. Closing comments, anybody? before
I'll
we go
just
down?
say Spielberg boycotted Arsenio,
Right.
so we should boycott those that move against us.
Right.
It's very interesting. The city council now is kowtowing to Bratton, who wants 1,000 more murderers, police officers in the community. Our community is already over policed. They call it police, but it's already overly controlled.
And don't forget, these hires, if you look at it, last class only 10% African American. Julian, closing comments.
Listen, we have a lot of work to do, and I think the majority of our work has to be through organization. We have to organize, and we have to deal with the issues that are malaffecting our communities. Leader family, I love you. My love is my family. My love and my prayers are still with you. Harper family, Dad, I love you. I'll see you very soon. And listen, we got work to do, family.
Godspeed to Mr. Harper, to the beautiful Leader family. Just want to tell you that love you all. Just have so much respect and love for what you do, and just thank you so much for the beautiful treatment, and even in your grieving, the way you was able to expand and show love to everybody. Love you all. Reinstate Automatics.
I did.
Okay, on behalf of Community Cop, we'd like to thank our producers, Sheila Berry, Veronica Kidnap Woods. We'd like to thank all of you, our viewing audience. Mr. Harper, we love you. Our prayers continue. We'd like to thank you for all the condolences that was sent to us our way. Little Mo, I love you. Knowledge is power. See you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Every Tuesday, tell a friend, tell a foe. Knowledge to the wise, reinstate Automatics. As Julian said, we have to organize people. Peace.